Didn't spell that right, but that's okay. Hey, so welcome to Pastors for Yang. Welcome to Pastors for Yang. Today I'm tackling and talking about the conversation or the topic of why do so many conservatives or Republicans, why are they interested in Yang? Why is that a thing even? And the reason I'm bringing this up is, as I showed you before, but now I'll actually talk about it. Hear me. Talking about this Twitter exchange that I was involved in. And it all started with a person named Joelle, maybe, who was asking for some advice. Want to share Yang on Facebook and don't know what video to show. Her audience are moms, relatively conservative Christians, and some boomers. So overall, right-leaning. Favorite policies, American Scorecard, and Humanity First with some UBI mixed in. People from Humanity suggested the Ben Shapiro interview, which is an excellent one, and my stuff, which is why I kind of got involved in this conversation. I then went on and mentioned, and as I was thinking about this, I realized that so many of Yang Gang YouTubers are actually Republican or conservative, or at least used to be. Nerds for Yang, Tom used to be a Republican and switched a fairly long time ago, but grew up in sort of a Republican household. And I suggested his interview with Felon Fred, and I give there we go. Give the links for that, but Nerds for Yang is great. Also, the Problem Solver Politics is also really good. The main host, Cardinellis, is definitely conservative and definitely talks about it quite a bit. Also, J. Scott Garibay does great stuff. Has, again, same sort of thing where he used to be a Republican. He is now a Democrat, and kind of brings that in sometimes as well. But there's this, I don't know, there's this thing that a lot of supporters, but I'm seeing a lot of YouTubers, and now this is also the ones that I tend to follow, which that makes sense, right? Used to be a Republican, continue to be kind of relatively conservative in some ways, but there's an interest in Andrew Yang. So why is that? I think my answer is 2016 is a huge part of that, right? 2016 didn't make this happen, but it sort of all came to a head. There had been this conflict between sort of conservative Republicans, voters, senators, representatives, people in those sorts of positions, and more the establishment and kind of the party people. There has been a long sort of controversy between, the party and a lot of these sort of more fringe, especially senators and representatives. And I've been following those folks for quite a while. As I said, I supported Ted Cruz in the 2016 election because I thought that his views and his character, but also just, his policies were solid conservative policies, and that's not what won. That's not what, and we since then we have shifted very much towards that kind of the new establishment. The new establishment, they all kowtowed and they bowed down and they all said, okay, great. If Donald Trump is going to win, we're going to support him and all his kind of policies. And that's kind of the idea, right? So we have seen this shift. I've also seen a shift, especially among alternate media. And so YouTube is absolutely part of that. But, talking about, we have had this sort of very partisan news media. Fox News is absolutely if not a arm of the Republican Party, it is a branch, or they're very sympathetic with the Republican Party. On the other side, CNN pretends to be sort of above the board, and at least MSNBC is very much on the side of kind of extreme extreme left sort of Democrats and the Democratic Party and the very progressive wing of the Democrat Party. And we as consumers have seen this and said, oh, I'm not sure if I want to choose from either of these. And so you notice in alternate media and news especially, there has been a shift away from sort of hard party politics to a little bit more thought, a little bit more discourse. The Blaze Network, Glenn Beck, all that sort of stuff, has very much he shifted away from Republican to more of a libertarian view. I shifted with that as well. I haven't watched a whole lot, but it sounds like there's that movement away from party stuff. There's an overall feeling of, and I think this is also 2016, of, okay, parties maybe are not our best option as far as how we go forward. So let's think about some of this stuff, right? Let's not be just along party lines. Let's think through things. So there's been an overall movement towards that. Enter Andrew Yang, right? And there are some amazing things in Andrew Yang's policies, in his personality, his character, that are very appealing to conservatives, ex-Republicans, continuing Republicans, right? The fact that he is very mindful, and it's all about math, right? It's all about let's look at what the statistics are. Let's look at how people are actually being affected. And so, especially for those of us who are kind of disaffected, conservative Republican side, but also those who are really looking at, maybe they really supported Donald Trump because he was speaking to these issues that nobody else was speaking to. Well, Andrew Yang is also speaking to those issues, but it's not mouthing off and quick sort of like, oh yeah, it's this. It's much more sort of thought out, reasonable consideration of these issues. Another major thing is Andrew Yang's sort of libertarian streak, right? There's many of us. My view of conservatism and the role of government is very much, I do like the Reagan, we're here from the government and we're here to help. That's the worst phrase that you could possibly hear, because government messes stuff up. And there's an element to Andrew Yang's platform that is very much, yes, the federal government needs to come in and take on this role to do universal basic income, because this is something that we need as a society, as a people. But you know what? We're just going to give you the money and we don't care what you do with it, right? It's very much libertarian. It's very hands-off. It's very conservative. It's holding up capitalism. It's just capitalism where there's, that thing called capital, right? There's actually money to spend in capitalism, and that's a good and useful thing. It is saying that these people who have succeeded, these giant companies, Amazon and Google and all that sort of stuff, there's nothing inherently evil about the fact that they have a lot of money, but we should have a part of that. We should have a portion of that. They have avoided paying taxes. That's not because they're evil. It's because they're not idiots, right? Why would you just, there you go, have lots of money if you don't have to, right? How many of us, if we could have completely avoid paying taxes and get away with it, would we do it? Well, duh, yeah, of course we would. That's the strength of some other Democratic folks who say that we should give more tax breaks to just regular lower that tax rate so that there's more money in their hands. Now, I argue that something like a UBI is much more useful because it's cash on hand. It's something that you can use right here, right now. And so that's a conversation. But anyways, that's something that really appeals to conservatives, libertarians, Republicans, that very much, sure, I'll give you some capital, but I'm going to be hands off. The idea then, what does that mean for other things. I'll talk about abortion in a future video, but I had a comment on YouTube saying, oh, humanity first, whatever. Um, that doesn't mean anything because he's not trying to completely wipe out abortion. And I said, well, okay, yeah, right. Now I'm pro-life. I really do not like abortion. On the other hand, I'm a little bit libertarian about it, where if someone wants to make a bad decision, whether that is, there's so many different kinds of bad decisions, which I think aborting your child is. But if someone wants to make a bad decision, we should not, as the government, step in and say, no, you can't make that bad decision. Government's role is not to save ourselves from ourselves. We're the government, to a certain extent, we're supposed to save us from one another, right? There's a certain role there, but to save us from our own poor decisions is not necessarily something that we should do. So the complete outlawing of abortion, I'm not sure, right? However, if we look at the specifically what the effects of universal basic income and also the healthcare stuff, how is that going to affect abortions? Well, it's going to lower them significantly by access to contraceptives, by having better medical care. Part of the issue with abortion is a disproportionate amount of minorities, specifically African American women, who are actually in danger because of their pregnancies, and because of that infant, right? There are some major issues that happen specifically in that community that that is a big challenge and a part of the abortion question, right? And also the fact that you have $1,000 a month now in your pocket. A lot of abortions are the result of I can barely feed myself, right? How am I going to afford a child? So all of those are going to actually be reducing the amount of abortions. That was a little tangent on abortion, but anyways, the effect of Andrew Yang's other policies on these various things, the fact that there will be more capital, therefore more businesses, right? Small businesses will have a much better chance to grow. And I was having taking a little walk with my mother-in-law in our little downtown. This is a very small upstate South Carolina town. And she asked, oh, have any new businesses opened it up? I said, oh, some more have closed down, right? Because this is when we talked a little bit about the economy that we have nationally, but also the economy that we have locally. There's not enough capital to support a small business, or especially these really small businesses. There were two dog washing places that opened up in the last year, and both of them were closed again because nobody has extra money to wash their dog, let alone all sorts of other things. And so that is a great reason to support Andrew Yang and his policies if you're on the conservative Republican libertarian side, because he's building up small businesses. This is a great thing for all of us as a community. And the other major thing, and I'll close with this, I'll try to close with this, is Andrew Yang's character himself. He is a family man. He is a man who holds up his wife as an important worker and someone who contributes in immeasurable ways to our community, and especially to his children. He loves his children, and he is in this because he loves his children. He has a record and a character that is maybe not spotless, probably. I mean, I would just assume, because none of us have completely spotless records, but not scandals, I mean, like the biggest possible thing that has come up was one lady said that he had fired her because she got married. He says it's patently false, and because of labor laws, he can't actually say anything more than that. But anyways, But you also look at, she made this claim, right? This is what he did. He also provided her with 2 years' salary afterwards. I mean, that's not the high up crony capitalist who says, "Okay, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired." Not necessarily quoting anyone there. Um, his character is stellar, and that's important for us as conservatives, or at least used to be important for us Republicans, right? That there's something that we can support in the person himself as well as the policies. So I think there's a lot of reasons that conservatives and Republicans, libertarians, we're all flocking to Andrew Yang, and this is a huge coalition. There are also huge reasons why progressives and liberals and all sorts of other Democrats are flocking to Andrew because he's a good person and he has good policies that are based not on politics, not on partisanship, but are based on, well, math, based on how the world actually is, what we see over the horizon. And so there's a lot of reason why a lot of people are supporting. And if you're Yang curious, if you're interested in thinking about this, really look into his policies, really look into his character, watch some long form interviews. That Ben Shapiro one is a great one. I think there are some things that Ben brings up that are pretty unfair, and apparently he actually went on Rogan later and was complaining about that. Kind of the making assumptions about giving people money and what is that going to do to their workflow and that sort of stuff, which Andrew Yang didn't specifically. Well, he did actually talk about, but not to a point where Ben apparently took away. But I'll hold it up. That was actually my first interview that I really dove into Andrew. Ben Shapiro, that was a great one. Tucker Carlson, I believe he was on as well. Look at these long form interviews. See the person. See how he's able to think through things. That's another huge one, right? He's able to think through problems and issues. And for me, as conservative and as a person, right, I think that's important. We should be thinking through the decisions that we make on the federal level. Absolutely, we shouldn't just kind of make a rash decision and then have to deal with it for the next 20 years. So, anyways, there's lots of reasons I think that conservatives, Republicans can and should align themselves with Yang. So if you are Yang curious, if you're thinking about it, definitely do some more thinking, do some more reading, do some more watching. I think you'll find a lot that you support. If you are full Yang gang and you are really for him, then keep it up and continue to tell your story. Why are you interested in Andrew Yang? What is there in you that something in Andrew Yang just calls out? You want to hold up. This is Pastors for Yang, so I will also mention the huge impact on churches and nonprofit organizations from the UBI is huge. He's very much, I believe he grew up Christian. I'm not sure what his personal religious views are at this point because he doesn't really talk about it. That's part of the non-identity politics that he does. I'd be very interested to talk to him about that or find out more about that. But he's also not anti-religion by any means. He holds up churches constantly and talks about how they will be affected by these things. So I'll just throw that in because this is Pastors for Yang, and that's part of what I focus on is the religion. Anyways, thank you for joining me today. If you haven't done so already, subscribe. If you haven't done so already, click the notification button, which lets you know when I go live. Follow me on Twitter at PastorsForWhy. And yeah, have a very blessed day. Have a great day, and humanity first. All right, thanks.